All right, Shaw, I don't have to break the news to you that Celtics, Nets were involved in a trade rumor surrounding Jaylen Brown and Kevin Durant. And, a lot of kind of basketball personalities have already given their take on this. And it seems to me the overwhelming majority would say, if I'm the Celtics, I'm willing to give up Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's an elite scorer. He has the rings, does more offensively, you could argue defensively, is more versatile, more size. And obviously there's some truth to that. Hard to argue with Kevin Durant's scoring pedigree, hard to argue with some of his, championship experience, playoff experience. But I will be perfectly honest, I do not understand the logic behind this for the Boston Celtics. I understand in a vacuum, Kevin Durant is a better player than Jaylen Brown. Probably, even if you include what Jaylen Brown's ceiling might be, probably, most likely will never become a better player than Kevin Durant. Can agree with that. But I think we're operating on some huge assumptions here that, in my opinion, should be factored in way more than they seem to be. Number one, Kevin Durant, injury history, ruptured Achilles, has played something like 90 games in the past 3 years, and is 34 years old. If he isn't still in his prime, I would say he's looking at a slow decline. Obviously, his game probably will translate being, a shooter and that high release. He'll probably slowly fade. It won't be a steep drop off. But he's 34 years old, already slew of injuries. So you're going to give up your secondary scorer, your second, playmaker, solid plus defender, good locker room guy in Jaylen Brown, homegrown guy. You drafted him. He's come through, hell in certain situations, being in all these trade rumors. He's stuck to Boston, said he loves it in Boston. You're going to give it up for a 34-year-old guy who's like waning in his prime and hasn't played a full season in, half a decade. Okay, that's just the injury stuff. Then you have Kevin Durant's personality. Kevin Durant has never been the guy to stick with the team, to make, a kind of sacrifice in what, a team had invested in him. And I get the player empowerment thing. I understand that, players have a right to be, where they want to be. Kevin Durant, in terms of just track record, let's just be smart as a franchise here and understand that he's never stuck around in one place very long. Even though he won titles in Golden State, would rather kind of have his own thing going in Brooklyn. Brought together the gang, Kyrie, Harden. We all know how that ended up. And so, another track record that is just completely spotty at best in terms of a guy's personality, in terms of being loyal. Why do we assume that he's going to be any different in Boston? You might get 2 or 3 years out of him, and then he'll become, uninterested and move on. He's like the person that's like constantly dating all the time, but is never going to actually get married, never make a long-term commitment. That's Kevin Durant. So I don't understand why you're going to mortgage your future and just, the championship roster you built last year for Kevin Durant. So there's that. We have personality. We have locker room. And in as a part of that, we have Kevin Durant has never been a proven leader. We talk about all the experience. We talk about all the playoff stuff. Never won a title being the number one. And you could argue he might have been the number one Golden State, but he was brought into that system. I think, Steph Curry's number one. That's his team. Kevin Durant's never made it when it's just his team. In fact, he lost and got swept by these Celtics when it was his team with Brooklyn. And also, James Harden wasn't happy with Kevin Durant being the guy. So why do we think he can come into Boston and, lead them to a title? And then you have the whole basketball aspect of this, which I feel like is another underrated part of this discussion. Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum, what does that look like in terms of fit? You have two ball-dominant forwards who have never really played with that kind of guy before. Kevin Durant's played with Kyrie, he's played with James Harden, obviously really talented scoring guards. Played with Curry, Thompson, never played with a guy who basically fulfills the same role as him and Jason Tatum. And Jason Tatum's never played with an elite scorer like Kevin Durant. So what does that look like? To me, that doesn't make any sense because, Jaylen Brown has kind of been built as this complementary scorer, complementary defender in the backcourt, can play off Tatum to a certain degree. And, if whose team is it at that point with Tatum and Kevin Durant? Is Kevin Durant going to try and impose his own will on the team? Is he going to try and play second fiddle to Tatum, which has got to be kind of weird because Curry obviously, was an MVP at that time. Tatum, way younger than Kevin Durant. So can he really, kind of pass the mantle to him? I just think you invite all kinds of chaos. We're making tons of assumptions about this guy, Kevin Durant, and what he can bring to your team. When he's not healthy, he doesn't want to be there after 2 years. And we still not necessarily make basketball sense, even though he may be better than Jaylen Brown. I don't love the idea of just smushing a bunch of talent together and just trying to figure it out. As good as a coach as Ime Udoka was down the stretch this year, I think that's a tough assignment both in the locker room and on the floor to try and make Kevin Durant somehow fit the Boston system. I mean, this isn't the time to kind of abandon the whole Boston mentality of grit and grind, the Marcus Smarts, the Jaylen Browns, the Grant Williams, Robert Williams. Do we think Kevin Durant will buy into that kind of defense, all those rotations, that communication that they predicated themselves on, that got them to the finals? I'm not sure I would trust it. So, I don't love this idea of just upgrading for the sake of getting a more talented guy, even though he's older, and doesn't necessarily make sense with the culture. I mean, we literally saw what happened in Brooklyn, who might have had the most talented roster, of recent memory, and couldn't figure out because of the personalities, because of the X and O's. So why do we think Boston, it's going to work? I don't understand it. Feel free to disagree. Love to hear more arguments in favor of getting KD to Beantown. But listen, I don't understand it. Maybe you do agree. Feel free to let me know. Love some brothers in unison here. But yeah, it's just frustrating. And if I'm Boston, I do not trade for Kevin Durant. I want to make that perfectly clear. But that's it for me for now. Take care of yourselves. Take it easy. And I'll see you next time.